Okay, we're going live. This is Lindsay with Texas Hill Country Winery.
We have a few messages from some friends who wanted to say hi.
Hey guys, Nate here, Bell Springs.
Hi, from Hawk Shadow.
Hi, from High Meadow Winery.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. She's from Texas Winery.
Hello, friends. We've missed you. This is Nicole with Becker Vineyards.
Hi, this is Dan and Sue Schultz of $33 Combined. From Solaro Estate Winery and Ranch in Texas Hill Country. Cheers from Farmhouse Vineyard.
Hi everybody, I'm Jesse with Lost Trust Cellars in Fredericksburg.
Hey, it's Doug. This is Boo. Los Wines. Hey guys, it's Duncan from Los Pinos Ranch Vineyard.
Everyone, this is all the best for Sweetwater Vineyard. We're Texas Heritage.
Hey guys, this is Tommy Welford from Dukeman Family Winery.
Hi, this is Sheila from Dry Comel Creek Vineyards.
Hi, John here from Curvin Hills Winery.
Hi, I'm David Kuhlken of Pedernales Cellars.
And I'm Julie Kuhlken of Pedernales Cellars.
Hey guys, it's Chris and Catherine from Los Pinos Vineyards.
Hi, we're Steve and Sally Baxter, Fiesta Winery.
This is Gina with Stonehouse Vineyard.
Hi, from Driftwood Estate Winery. I'm Laura Elliott.
And I'm her dad, Gary.
Hey guys, it's Daniel and Lauren here at Fall Creek Vineyards in Driftwood.
My name is Melissa, and I work at Blue Lotus Winery in Texas Neighbor.
Cheers!
Lindsay with Texas Hill Country Winery.
We have a few messages from some friends who wanted to say hi.
Hey guys, Nate here, Bell Springs.
Hi, from Hawk Shadow.
Hi from High Meadow Winery.
I'm Lindsay. I'm from Winery.
Hello, friends. We've missed you. This is Nicole with Becker Vineyards.
Hi, this is Dan and Sue Schultz, $33 combined. From Solaro Estate, Winery and Ranch in the Texas Hill Country. Cheers from Farmhouse Vineyard.
Hi everybody, I'm Jesse with Lost Trust Cellars in Fredericksburg.
Hey, it's Doug. This is Boo. Los Wines. Hey guys, it's Duncan from Los Pinos Ranch Vineyard.
Everyone, this is all the best for Sweetwater Vineyard. We're Texas Heritage.
Hey guys, this is Tommy Welford from Dukeman Family Winery.
Hi, this is Sheila from Dry Comel Creek Vineyards.
Hi, John here from Kirkwood Hills Winery.
Hi, I'm David Kuhlken of Pedernales Cellars.
And I'm Julie Kuhlken of Pedernales Cellars.
Hey guys, it's Chris and Catherine from Los Vineyards.
Hi, we're Steve and Sally Baxter, Fiesta Winery.
This is Gina from Stonehouse Vineyards.
Hi, from Jim Jordan State Winery. I'm Laura Elliott.
And I'm her dad, Gary.
Hey guys, it's Daniel and Lauren here at Fall Creek Vineyards in Driftwood.
My name is Melissa, and I work at Blue Lotus Winery in Texas Leap.
Cheers!
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for Hill Country Happy Hour. My name is Lindsay Felty, and I'm the operations coordinator for Texas Hill Country Wineries. And we've been hosting these live happy hours for the past 2 months, and they've been a great opportunity for all of us to connect during this time. Each week, we have a different group of THCW member wineries talking about a variety of topics. And this week, we have a group of Hill Country Somms. They're going to be sharing their background, how they got into Texas wine, and of course, about their winery and the wines that they're drinking tonight. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have in the comments here on Facebook. And David, our moderator, is going to relay them to everyone throughout the evening. And without further ado, I will announce tonight's panel, which includes Carl Hudson with 4.0 Cellars, Erin Green with Fiesta Winery, Jennifer Beckmann with Slate Mill Wine Collective, Erika Fritz with Solaro Estate, and our moderator, David Kuhlken. He is with Pedernales Cellars, and he is also the Texas Hill Country Winery's president. So I will go ahead and let David take it from here.
Is David muted?
No? David, hey, we can't hear you.
Oh, goodness. All right, let's start all over. Thank you, Lindsay, for having us tonight and for hosting this. And I'll say to everybody out there tonight, I hope you can open up a glass and drink along with us, because everybody here will be talking about what they've got in their glass. And this is a great opportunity, since you're going to have 4 of the best sommeliers in the Texas Hill Country online tonight, to engage in a conversation about your wines and about how you evaluate and understand and choose your wines. With that, what I'd like to do actually is to go around with each of our members, let them give you a little more of an introduction about themselves, and of course, let them talk as well about what they are drinking, and then we'll kick it off from there. So for starters, let's go to Jennifer. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've got going on and about yourself?
Hi, nice to meet everybody. Thanks for entertaining us tonight. My name is Jennifer Beckmann. I'm the Director of Operations, Educator and Sommelier at Slate Mill Wine Collective, and owner and educator at a new project coming up in San Antonio called Rerooted 2.0. which is a small urban winery concept in downtown San Antonio. Glad to be here. Been here in the Texas Hill Country, involved with startup wineries for a little over 11 years, and kind of started my journey here in Texas. I came here from Chicago, where I'd worked as a restaurant sommelier, retail wine buyer, you name it, a little bit of distribution in there all over the board before I got to Texas. Found the Texas wine industry and never looked back. Fell in love immediately and have been really blessed to be a big part of this growth and process. I'm a certified sommelier with the Quartermaster Sommeliers. I certified back in 2007, way before it was the Somm movie. So it was a different world at that time. And last year, I became the 441st person in the world to be awarded the certificate for Certified Wine Educator with the Society of Wine Educators. Tonight, I am drinking with you the Trebbiano from 1851 Vineyards. For those of you not familiar with Slate Wine Collective, this is a project that started last June. And we wanted to create a collective experience, giving small vintners an opportunity to not only do custom crush, develop their brand, produce in full cycle, even potentially source fruit from one estate, as opposed to having to buy their own property, go through extensive economic hardship and trying to start up on their own. Our in-house brand is 1851 Vineyards, and tonight I'm drinking the Trebbiano. Trebbiano for me is a really phenomenal grape for the state of Texas because it's so acid rich. It really has that high and bright acidity, which makes it perfect for the hot weather growing, in addition to making it really accessible to pairing with food.
Well, excellent, Jennifer. And let's jump over. Erika, you want to tell us about yourself, about where you work and what you're drinking?
Of course. So my name is Erika Fritz. I work at Solaro Estate Winery in Dripping Springs in the Texas Hill Country. I grew up in the Texas wine industry and have just learned along with everyone else and been taught by everyone else, and have been really fortunate to grow up and know everyone in the Texas Hill Country wine industry for practically my whole life. Tonight, or this evening, I am drinking our Tempranillo. So it is our latest release for this year. We just bottled it about a month and a half ago. It is my new favorite. It was our Montepulciano, but this one has a little bit more of that earthiness to it. So I'm really enjoying that at the moment. Great to go with some fajitas, which are my current favorite meal. Obsessed with some nice beef fajitas. I sort of got into being a somm just because I wanted to learn more. And I was fortunate enough to be able to take my first level somm at being so young. So I'm really grateful to everyone that has helped me along the way, that helped me study, many of which are owners and winemakers of various wineries in the Texas Hill Country. So just a huge thank you to everyone. And I think that's it from me.
Thanks, Erika. And so Erin Green, you want to jump in and tell us about your background?
Absolutely. Okay, so originally my parents are grape growers up in the High Plains region of Texas, and so I was raised in a vineyard. I currently work for Fiesta Winery, and I've been with this company for the last 6 years. Back in 2016, I got my executive wine certification, mostly because we felt a need to have some structure here, and Sally and Steve were really wanting to have, our owners, Sally and Steve, wanted to have somebody on staff who had a certification, and I was all for it. Tonight I am drinking our Heart of Texas Red, which is a new release that we just released during this shutdown. It is a Tannat blend. So cheers. With a little bit of Primitivo. It is very, very full-bodied and very, very rich, which is one of my favorite things about it. So this is my new favorite out of all of our new releases, our new High Plains, Texas, Heart of Texas.
Cool. Well, excellent. And Carl, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're at right now?
Thank you, David. I've been involved with wine for over 40 years. I'm a native Texan, earned a PhD in chemistry, which has really helped with this wine business. It's kind of fun. Worked as a research scientist for 30 years and was involved with wine the whole time. I ran wine tasting groups, worked with restaurant programs, participated in winemaking and grape growing activities, and ultimately became an assistant winemaker for a number of years. It's been a lot of fun. I now serve as the wine educator at 4.0 Cellars here in Fredericksburg, not too far from where you are, David. And I earned the CSW, Certified Specialist of Wine, from the Society of Wine Educators. Last couple of years, I've had the great privilege of working on the program committees for both the Texas Hill Country Wineries and for the Texas Wine and Grape Growers Association, and was absolutely thrilled back in 2018 when I was presented with the Twiga Press Award for the year for 2018. So this has been a lot of fun, and I'm very excited about the Texas wine industry. What I'm drinking tonight is from Brennan Vineyards, one of our partners there. This is their W, or Winemaker's Choice, and it is a non-vintage blend of both High Plains and Central Texas Cabernet Sauvignon with some Cabernet Franc and a little bit of what's a Carmenere that makes it a very interesting blend. So thanks.
Excellent. Well, great. Well, thanks from all of y'all. And just for anybody, give you guys a little background. I am not a sommelier, so that will I will not be talking to anybody on this particular chat about how to become one or what sommeliers necessarily do. I'm a winemaker, and I started this winery, Pedernales, back in 2005. So I've been doing this for almost 15 years, and definitely learned that side of the business. But one of the things that I can attest to being on this side of it is that I have developed an expertise and knowledge for viticulture and winemaking, but depend entirely when it comes to being able to communicate a lot about our wines to sommeliers. And that is really an entirely different track. And with that in mind, one of the things that I would love for all of you to be able to help, I guess, our audience understand is, like, not just how did you become a sommelier, but talk a little bit from y'all's perspective about the process so that people can understand both. What I challenge you guys to explain to them is there's hear a lot of acronyms, a lot of different levels and descriptions about sommeliers. And it would probably help to kind of give y'all some background on what y'all's path was on sommeliers, how you became one, and maybe in doing so help communicate what that path looks like to other people and what you can do as a sommelier with that training. So I'll throw it, who wants to jump in first? Actually, I'll let you guys, whoever feels like going in there.
I don't mind jumping in first.
Sure, jump in there, Erin.
All right, so earlier, my parents are grape growers up in West Texas. We grow a lot of red varietals. We only have about 28 acres, but it is family owned and operated. Our vineyard is about 20 years old right now. So I grew up in the vineyard side. We did not do any production and still don't. We are, it's just farming. It's just grapes. And it was a unique experience, being in the vineyard and understanding the kind of work and the kind of time that a lot of these growers put into how wine is going to turn out. So growing up in it, I didn't really know a whole lot other than, it's grape growing, sure. But as I got older and the more that I started to see how it kind of comes out on the wine side and the enjoyment side, people being able to drink it, people being able to enjoy it, that's when I really started to find my passion with it and decided to pursue it. I had a really wonderful friend of mine. Shout out to Christina. She was a roommate and a coworker, and she really pushed me and inspired me to pursue to be a sommelier in order for me to be able to grow with that. And quite honestly, for those of you out there who are new to it or unsure about what somm is, we know a little bit or a lot about everything. So it's such a wide spectrum as far as what we know, what we can do, and having that perspective. I specifically wanted to learn more. I thought I knew a whole lot when I first started working for Fiesta Winery, with my background and everything like that. And I just realized as soon as I got into taking my courses and to learning, I knew absolutely nothing. So as much as I thought I knew nothing. And it was a very humbling moment for me. And it was one that I look back on to this day with love and appreciation, and knowing how far both the industry, my family, everybody, all of these wineries, especially here in the Hill Country, up in the High Plains, how far everybody has really, really come. And it's really just unique to see that kind of story unfold.
Cool.
Erin, I think that's a really great point. And as you tapped on it, I've mentored a lot of people that have this interest in going down this path, and they start it and they think that it's going to be about drinking. It's really not. It's about geography and viticulture and anthropology and history and chemistry, and you name it, it's in there. And it's to have an understanding. It's really important to bring, in pieces, this level of historical knowledge. This is a centuries old industry at its core, that if you don't have a knowledge of the road that's paved to where we stand today as a very young region, it's really a disservice. So the more that we can spread information and education about the wines of the world, and how the development of regions has progressed and been deterred, it's a real disservice to both our guests and to us as industry builders to not have that on the plate, not to consider these factors as we move forward.
Absolutely. That's my favorite thing, is to be able to teach somebody one new thing. It doesn't have to be the whole book. If it's just one new thing and they walk out feeling a little bit better or a little bit more informed about making a decision, or walking into a winery, a place where they're like, I would have never gone there had I not been okay or felt, like I knew what I was doing. That's like my favorite thing, hands down, just to teach somebody something new.
I love being in the tasting room because of that, because you really get to talk to people who are coming here to be educated and to learn about the Texas Hill Country, or just the Texas, regions, and they know what they know and they know what they like, and then they're trying to build off of that. And I don't get to be in the tasting room a whole lot, but now with this whole thing happening, I've been able to be down here and really have the time to talk to like the one person that drives through. And they've been, asking so many questions, and it's been really kind of making me think, oh, wow, like I've never been asked that question before, but I love talking about it and teaching everyone, and everyone's so interested in it. And I've been asked so many times in the past few weeks about how to be a somm. And I thought that what a great entrance into this happy hour, because everyone has been talking about it for the past few weeks. So.
I totally agree with the concept of trying to teach people who come, your consumers, your wine drinkers, a little bit about what a somm means, a little bit about the wine that you have, a little bit about the winery, the vineyards, whatever. My goal too is for me to learn something new every day, because like has been said, you never learn it all. You never will. And so every day that you can learn something new and different just makes you a little bit better at your job.
I always, my main job, I guess, is to help educate the people that work in our tasting room. That would be kind of the front line to all of our consumers and our customers and our fans, to try to teach them. And a lot of them have started studying and borrowing my books and my notes and all sorts of stuff to then become somms. And they're super into it. And I love just kind of fostering that. And I feel like a mother hen a little bit. And I think it's so enriching to know, well, as you were saying, you've been a mentor, and me knowing all of my mentors, kind of halfway sort of becoming that is really fulfilling, I guess, especially when it's something that you're really passionate about and super into.
So I have a funny story friend of mine in the restaurant industry, really talented guy, worked as a wine buyer, was really interested in studying more, became involved with myself and a small group of sommeliers that were at the time rigorously blind tasting every week. We were all in some level of advanced or above testing. And I hadn't really considered that he had never done it before. And brought him into the group, and we set up in front of each of us 8 wines. We're getting ready to sit down. As I mentioned, these 3 other somms are some of the top somms in San Antonio, all advanced or master level. And I hit the clock and I was like, and begin. And he's looking at me like I'm nuts. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, and it dawned on me, I was like, oh, he's never done this. So we walked him through, and long story short, he is our tasting room manager over at Slate Mill Wine Collective today, and is studying with me really vigorously now. It really kind of sparked this interest for him. He'll be managing our location in San Antonio. But back to your point of, you just never know enough. I'll tell you, my favorite study guide is the Society Wine Educator Study Guide. I buy it in every reprint every year. I read this book front cover to back cover every year, and I learn something new every time I pick it up. So it never gets old. The learning never stops. You can never retain all of it. You can never learn all of it. So it's really important for educators to continue. And I always tell people, it is not, there's no appropriate answer other than I don't know if you don't know the answer. Don't try to fake it till you make it. It doesn't work in this industry, but it's a big industry. So nobody knows everything. I say it all the time. But yeah, taste frequently, study frequently, keep reading. You can never reach the end.
Well, and actually, like, we had a question about that, and you guys are kind of getting on some of that. What does it look like, for you in this role, and just generally as a sommelier, to what do you do in order to really kind of build up your skills? Because, again, for consumers, I think there's an image in their mind about sommeliers, just as you say, I think like just drinking for a job, but actually there's a real method to it, right? And I mean, can you guys talk a little bit to what you guys do in order to hone your skills as a sommelier?
Well, I'll take a shot at that. I'll tell you, I study a lot. I read continuously. I have loved these virtual sessions that we've been doing, because not only have they been fun, but it's been a lot of education. I totally agree with Jen that Society of Wine Educators Guide for the Certified Specialist in Wine is the best book I've run across. And I also buy it and read it through cover to cover every time it comes out. You just can't stop. And I visit vineyards, I visit wineries, I visit people like you, David. What are you doing? Why are you doing it that way? You study the growers, you go up to the high plains, you talk to these guys. What are they doing? Why are they doing it that way? And it all makes sense. And every time you do that, you learn something valuable, not only to yourself, but to your job.
Yeah. And it just the other day, Carl and I going back and forth, learning new information from each other. We had a 4-part email session based on one little minutia, one fact that we really explored in depth together. You really have to have a love and a passion for what it is. Otherwise, it just is not going to be your cup of tea. But, as mentioned, keep reading, keep studying, also keep tasting. The drinking is a part of it. And when I say drinking, I mean tasting and spitting and analyzing. There is a little bit of this process that will sort of make you hate wine a little bit. It'll rob some of the enjoyment, but it'll really enrich you with a deeper understanding. But nobody's born with an inherent nature to blind taste, and it's not a party trick. It's a lot of deductive, thoughtful reasoning that goes into that process. So we work with our staff very regularly on that process. And as mentioned prior, keep people engaged, keep studying, keep them at studying. And if they're not into it, it may not be for them. But, we're offering right now, sponsorship to go through any testing cycle that anyone really feels is the best fit for what they want to do. But there has to be a support system in place. Like I said before, I did it when the support system wasn't really fluid. and Facebook wasn't exactly such an integrated part of our lives, and the movie Somm hadn't come out yet. Finding this information was difficult. So finding those support systems was not the easiest thing to do. And today, I wish I had this kind of online and localized support group that exists in every community. This is just, the interest is there. You should definitely, monopolize it.
Yeah, and for practicing your skills, do you guys like typically go together with different groups in order to do tastings with other somms or just other folks in the business?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Find a group that you trust. You got to find people that you feel really okay being wrong in front of, because it's when you're wrong, that's when you learn. And if you're out to, again, pull the party trick or show off, it's not learning. And you really got to feel like a fool and be okay with these people to do it.
And you can ask questions even if you think they're stupid or that everyone else knows the answer to. I'm very guilty of that. Just, what is that? And everyone's like, yes, obviously. But you got to ask the questions, because if you don't, you'll never know. And then it multiplies in on itself, especially if it's like a vocabulary word that you didn't really grow up with and people here don't really use, or it's a different varietal that's a varietal that they call something else somewhere else in the world. And so it's the same genetic grape, but something completely different, which I didn't know happened until I started doing this. And then you find, oh, well, that's also called Croatina? Crazy. Great, now I gotta remember that too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think Texas perhaps challenges a little on this front because the diversity of varieties and styles, maybe because it's a younger region and there's more experimentation, is just a lot wider too. And that actually sort of brings me to a question. I'm kind of curious with all of you guys here. I think like a common question I get even as a winemaker is one about, well, like this maybe will come from some customers. Sometimes it'll come from folks at restaurants that we're tasting with. They want to know, like, how should I like place Texas in the world of wine? Like, how would you describe it? What are its strengths? What are its areas of improvement? Like, when you guys get those kind of questions, and of course you're communicating to folks on this, what is your message? How do you describe Texas wine as a sommelier? Dive in anywhere, guys.
What I love about the Texas industry is we do get to experiment a lot. We do get to play a lot, and we do have a lot less restrictions than some areas of the world, which I think is really unique, especially for our winemakers and for our somms, and especially for our tasting rooms. And I think that is something that people need to keep in mind as they're coming into our tasting rooms and things like that, especially if they're new and they're trying to find a wine that they like, or they're trying to learn more, but also as an experienced wine drinker who is used to something that might be a little different here. And I think that that's really, really cool to see somebody who has an open mind, or somebody who has a favorite where you get to open their mind, especially when it comes to Texas wines, and you get to sit, show them a little bit more about what we can do and what we can showcase if they're from a different part of the world or from another state that's not used to something that we might have here. And I think that that's really cool as far as my job as a somm, to be able to bring that to them and let them experiment a little bit. We've got a lot of freedom here, and I think that that's really special for Texas.
We have a lot of micro terroirs because we are so big, and depending on which part of even the hill country you're in, you can grow such a wide variety of different varietals. And something that we see in our tasting room a lot, and a lot of our staff ask all the time, is how to kind of respond to something. Is someone comes in and they want a varietal because that's their favorite varietal and that's all they want to drink. And you kind of have to pull it out of them a little bit. Well, what do you like about that varietal? Like, if we don't have it, and everyone else in their party is drinking something that they love that's ours, and so they are really adamant about, well, I want X. And so you have to see, well, do you like the tannin? Do you like the earthiness? What do you like about it? Do you like that it's fruity? Like, what parts are you actually enjoying, to see it kind of broaden their horizons, even if it's just a little bit. And we see that a lot in our tasting room, especially with our estate varietals like Barbera, Montepulciano, and Tempranillo, which some people don't taste all the time, and they drink lots of Malbecs or lots of Cabs, things like that.
Erika, that's a super stellar point. And you know, we all hear some of those factors, and as educators, as our ambassadors in our tasting room are talking about wine, it's about teaching people how to find the wines they best enjoy. And that more likely comes down to the structure of the wine, being tannin, acidity level, mouthfeel, rather than just flavor profiles. So understanding how to direct people from what they like traditionally into something that you actually carry is really, really, really critical for us. But really, I also think that this region it's growing so quickly and it's so fast. How many people here on this panel have been asked the question or heard the response, "This is really great for Texas"?
Oh, yeah.
Just make them drop that last two words.
Exactly.
Don't do that. Yeah.
My biggest pet peeve in the world. And I'll tell you what, man, even like I said, 10 years ago, I met David and Julie, and they were just opening. So many of the places I consider at that top tier quality were just opening even at that point, and I still found the quality. And I went to Chicago, went back to visit all my friends in the restaurant industry, sommeliers from all over the city, and we did blind tastings on Texas wines like Alianico and Petit Syrah side by side with worldwide counterparts. And every one of them unanimously fell in love with the Texas wines until they found out where it was from. And you could watch them person by person. They were like, "Oh, well, this finish is real falling apart. It's coming apart now." And I'm like, "Well, that was like 45 minutes ago, dude. That's the longest finish ever." So it really is kind of breaking those misconceptions, and we're re-educating people on a daily basis, at glass by glass. And I think that's really important, Erika, that, you know, our people, our ambassadors actually understand stylistic, structural differences and how to guide people towards what they really enjoy.
Well, Jen has been an inspiration for me in many, many different ways. And I love what she does. She has an incredible palate and a great way of putting things. And this concept about teaching people to find a Texas wine that they like, that's different perhaps than something that they're most familiar with or that they most enjoy. And one of my favorites is the connection between Chardonnay and Roussanne. And you get all these people in here, "I want a Chardonnay. Don't you have a Chardonnay?" Well, you know, we don't grow a lot of that in Texas. And you can explain why if you want to, but don't. It doesn't matter really. But instead, pour them a very good, rich Roussanne, which has a lot of the same body and stylistic characteristics that a Chardonnay has. And very often they'll love it. And in fact, I've done it blind in the tasting room. People thought it was a Chardonnay. So you just need to find that connection with what the customer thinks they want to drink and then make that work.
Yeah, no, you guys are hitting it brilliantly, because this is the part that, like, again, like makes Somms so critical in this part of the business, is being able to do that translation between what consumers already know they like about wines and what it may be in the wines that we make, and of course that you may sell in your tasting rooms, that will match up with those. But they may not have the vocabulary always to describe those. It takes, you know, a well-educated staff to be able to help them, to guide them to that place. And that, I mean, that is, I think, sort of the magic to some degree of what you guys do. And I guess in all of y'all's cases, you have learned a lot about what it is that's going on in the Texas wine industry and where it's going. With that in mind, I'm actually sort of curious, because we touched on this fact that Texas, you know, we're not growing, we are, but we're growing so many different things. We're not necessarily always growing these traditional varietals that a lot of consumers come in and already know that they expect they like. And so a question I'd put to you guys is, name one varietal that you think is sort of underappreciated that Texas is doing really well. And maybe also like point to some of the varietals that you just think that Texas can be identified around. And I realize that isn't really our goal in Texas, but it is. I mean, I know for me, it's one of the most common questions I will get is, well, just tell me, what is it that Texas does well, right? So do you guys want to take on that question about varietals, either ones that are sort of less known or more known that you feel like Texas does well?
Well, I can approach that real quick with going back to this Roussanne issue. I have a lot of friends who are very well educated and great wine tasters, great wine drinkers, have incredible cellars. And every time they come to visit me here in Fredericksburg, we go around and taste at the various wineries. And the one category that literally blows these people away is the fact that we do white Rhone varieties as well as anybody in the entire world. And you're talking about Vermentino and Picpoul Blanc and Marsanne and Roussanne and Viognier and Grenache Blanc. I just haven't run across them collectively as good a group as we're doing it here in Texas. So congratulations to you, David, and all the rest of these Texas growers and winemakers. We're killing it with white Rhones.
Erika, you you definitely have one.
Yeah, that's the problem with Zoom. You never know who's going to talk next. So I know for us in particular here in our smaller kind of micro terroir, because of how high we are, we do Montepulciano really well. And we do it as a single varietal and as an estate blend, but mostly as a single varietal. And a lot of people come in and they don't know what it is. Like they've never heard it, don't know how to pronounce it. And it becomes lots of people's favorites when they have it here in the tasting room, and the reason that people will join our wine club, just because it is so rich and versatile and easy to drink and really smooth, but still has that nice grippy tannin. Like it is a Texas Montepulciano. It's not going to be the same, obviously, as if you had a Montepulciano from Montepulciano. It's going to have a slightly different flavor profile, but people end up just falling in love with our Montepulciano and come back every week or every few weeks to stock up on more. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't know about, don't grow. And so for something that would be underappreciated, I guess would be a Montepulciano that grows really well here in our heat with our, lack of water, things like that.
Yeah.
And I love Montepulciano because it's so unique. And it kind of changes, and it's a little bit different every time you taste it, but then you can still recognize it every single time, and it just makes me happy inside. Although I would say to anybody else, both in Texas, out of state, whoever's watching, one of the varietals that I think that is really underappreciated is, and I'll say this, is Merlot. We have a beautiful Merlot that is nothing like anywhere else. And I think it's a great wine, but people come in here and they're like, ew, Merlot. They come into the tasting room with all this judgment around Merlot. And I'm like, listen, just because the movie Sideways ruined you and you think that you can't drink that, you should really learn to appreciate that somebody else might do a really great job. It might be grown really well somewhere else. But I think that that's something else as far as that perspective where people, get into their favorites. When they come in and they ask for the same thing every time, and they kind of like, oh, I don't like Merlots. And I'm like, but we have a really good Merlot if you'd like to try it. If you be open-minded, it'd be great.
So that's when I like to switch them up and say, okay, well, let me try something different. And I bring a glass down, pour Merlot in it, and give it to them. And see how they deal with that.
that one hits me every time.
I agree with all of these varieties, absolutely across the board. And to your point, David, it's hard for us to pinpoint, largely due to our huge geography. Yeah. And we've heard over the last 10 years, this giant push towards Tempranillo, which I think is wonderful here. We can make world-class Tempranillo, no question. Can we price it competitively? Oftentimes with Spain, that's a different story. Or are we doing it better? One of the varieties that I think is a real underdog in this climate and for us moving forward is Mourvedre. Josh Fritchie, our winemaker at Slate Wine Collective, he's been working with Mourvedre for about 8 years. His personal label, Tatum Cellars, is one of my personal favorites in the state. William Chris is doing spectacular things with the grape Mourvedre. And what I really like about that variety here for Texas is that unlike a lot of others, it's unique to us. Around the world, Mourvedre is a really rustic, rough and tumble kind of masculine expression. It has a lot of gamey and inky characteristics to it. Yet here in Texas, it sort of takes on this very feminine feel. It has a lot of floral capabilities. It has a nice structure while still being really elegant. And it's a very unique expression for an interesting grape for Texas specifically. And for that reason alone, I think that it's a real underdog for the state.
Jennifer, that's funny because I didn't even get into the wine I'm drinking.
Is it Moveja?
Yeah. So no, and I can sort of add in from a winemaker point of view that Mourvedre absolutely qualifies as that candidate for one of those grapes that's here to stay for Texas, because from a grower's point of view, from a winemaker's point of view, it's a beautiful grape. It is, like the range of expression, as you say, like growing it in the hill country where we have it, growing it in the high plains, it's really exceptional. And yeah, it is like when we're going out and trying to figure out what we're going to make, a lot of it is trying to figure out that kind of happy point between, yeah, it's great if we can grow it here, but it's also important that we can sell it and that people can appreciate it in the places we want to sell it. So there are some things that may work in a tasting room because it's a very specific audience, but it can be very different when we're taking wines out to actually sell in distribution, to take to like New York, if we're going to have like outside folks who don't have any kind of, hey, I really want to get behind buying a Texas wine. It might be quite the opposite. They want to see, is there a place for you in this conversation with all these wonderful wines from around the world that are actually there? Do you have something to bring to the table that's worth taking into consideration? So I think those are great suggestions too, the ones you guys are listing, because I think all of them hit those points in terms of like defining Texas in terms of what we can do.
Well, and our vineyard team has taken this opportunity actually during our shutdown. We've been able to redirect a lot of our personnel into the vineyard and into the winery just in marking time, but we very much had planting to do. So we just planted
Put them to work,
50,000 vines last month. Yeah. And it makes my little black sommelier heart expand 10 times its size. I get text in the middle of the night from Chase Jones, one of our owners and viticulturist, and Emily Graff, who's our vineyard manager, saying, hey, what would you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I'm like, 6 a.m. and I'm like, Vernaccia, Greco de Tufo. And we're just going nuts. So it's fun because we get to experiment. And there's just such a wide world of experimentation that we just don't know is working well. I mean, whoever outside of France was thinking Pic Pool Blanc is the perfect grape to plant. And it's just such a stunning white grape here. And it works and it sells. So it's a win-win all the way around.
Well, so that actually brings me to a question. We touched on a little bit about the role that you have as sommeliers in your own companies to train staff, but talk about like as a sommelier inside of a winery operation, like first you can talk about that training, but what else do you do? Because there's sort of, for a lot of wineries, I know there's sort of a feedback loop, since you guys are on the front line about what, sort of driving the style and the decisions in the winery. What do you guys do within your winery in terms of training and in terms of integrating your knowledge into what the winery does?
I have probably a fairly unique situation working for 3 different winery owners, 3 different winemakers, and I stay in communication with them fairly extensively throughout the year. And it's always fun to throw out the ideas, that I have about what I particularly like, what I think is easy to sell, what I think our customers like, and then fit that within the context of what they want to do, what they think they can do. We've got Central Texas, we've got High Plains, and it's just a lot of fun to put that together. So visiting with those people, I think, is an important part of my business in helping guide the grapes that we're going to focus on and the grapes that we might plant for the future.
I do a lot of our tasting notes for our tasting rooms and for everybody who's going to come through and try new wines. Yesterday, I was at our main location tasting some new varietals that are going to be coming out in the next 6 months to a year. But what was really interesting and cool for me was to see the excitement on our winemaker's face when he was showing me these wines and was like wanting me to taste them and like, what are your thoughts? But it was so great to put his enthusiasm into words that people can kind of understand and be able to start to write those descriptions, be able to put that on the label, especially for somebody who might buy this in a grocery store or might buy this at a liquor store, but to be able to take his enthusiasm and his hard work and then turn it into actual words that would appeal to somebody else. That's one of my favorite things to do. But of course, tasting notes for our team, and then of course, training our staff. So that one's one of my favorites.
The other day, Josh Fritchie, our winemaker, we sat down and spent 4 glorious hours blending together my wine program for Rerooted. And it's really fun. And he had a really interesting point in one of our live sessions on our page, in that sommeliers are very much looking for kind of this cohesiveness and this drinkability in the moment, and winemakers often look much further down the road for where that wine might be. And that's a great marriage to have. And when we sit together and we look at this entire room, and I have this encyclopedic tasting knowledge of every variety under the sun, that's something different when you start the blending process where, I have somebody who's really skilled in looking in a 5-year program as to what wine's going to do and saying, hey, we need to put these 2 grapes together because of these reasons. And this is what they're going to add to the structure on both sides. It's really just 2 sides of the same coin. And it's a lot of fun going down that road and making these blends. As I mentioned, so, for this wine program coming up, that whole concept is taking our incredibly rural story and bringing it into big cities and telling that in a different method. So bringing that sommelier point of view to the winemaking team, I think, is a real interesting way to look at things.
I was going to kind of say a similar thing is we're sort of the go-between between the sales and the winemaking. So whether it's sales in your tasting room or outside sales in retail or in restaurants, you are the one that basically markets to everyone else, because you either go do the sales or you are the one that teaches the person that goes and does the sales. Lost my train of thought for a second. And so you really have to know what the winemaker is thinking, what their intention was, what they are really proud of in this wine that you're going to want to showcase, and also being able to find other things that the buyer is going to want to hear, and that was in your wine, things like that. So kind of being in the middle, and I agree with Jen, it's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have some really good integrated roles with your team. And I know starting in this industry early when we were small, we didn't necessarily always have that kind of expertise. So winemaking was a little bit more of, if it grew and it seemed to work in the winery, we made the wine and then saw what happened. But I can speak from our experience that over time, both from my sister going down a sommelier path and then ultimately us hiring and training a lot more sommelier in-house, it's much more integrated, which is, I think, is a sign of just an increasing maturity in the industry, right? That sommeliers drive a lot more of this conversation, because after all, it's the sommeliers who have a much better understanding of what ultimately is going to appeal and work, and what is, what we're doing well consistently. Whereas a winemaker, we can become a little bit tied up to what we love, or we our little pet projects don't always translate into what it is that people really will be able to experience and enjoy. So, and I guess actually with that in mind, there's a lot of different questions to dive into, but first, real quick, I want you guys to describe part of the whole experience of wine is, of course, pairing and foods. So I'd kind of each of you guys real quickly describe, you can go to the wine that you particularly love that you've already talked about, or talk about another pairing. With wines that you guys, particularly are selling, what are some pairings you really love with wine?
I always go back to probably my favorite wine pairing ever was at a restaurant called Northwoods in Annapolis, Maryland. And the sommelier recommended a grilled veal steak in a olive oil laced Beurre Blanc sauce. And he had green olives stacked around one side of the plate and black olives stacked around the other side of the plate. And he served it with a glass of big, rich Chardonnay and a glass of really rich, fruity Pinot Noir, which was absolutely perfect. And it all mattered on where how the olives matched with that. And I will never forget that experience, because it's always, connecting, the food with the wine, and preferably food you like with wine you like. If you do that with friends you like, you can't really screw that up. That's pretty good. So that's my story.
My favorite pairing is, and of course, they're always getting better. But one of my favorites was ceviche on Lake Como when we were tasting the Fritchie Corton spumantes. Sorry, we're making a deck out back, so you might hear something. And it just, I never had ceviche before. I mean, I had, you know, everything else under the sun imaginable, I guess, from sushi pairings and things like that. But it was absolutely fabulous because the ceviche came from the same area as the grapes where it was grown. And the somm that was there at the winery just gave a glorious presentation about all of the different things that they had really kept in mind while making both the wine and the dish. So sorry about all the noises.
That's okay. I'm actually giggling because it's like I had to come down to our wine club tasting lounge way down at the other end of the building because they're continually hammering away at trying to get the tasting room ready for opening tomorrow. So yeah, tis the season of construction and remodeling. So excellent.
One of my favorite things to do is, back to the food and wine question, one of my favorite things to do is just experiment. You know, I tell somebody that they can actually put wine in their sauce or into a marinade and it just blows their mind. But I think that that's part of our education, and I think that's part of that continuing education is we do get to play with that as a somm. We do get to try new things and pair different stuff together. And I'm always coming from a learning and growing standpoint as far as trying new flavors, trying new textures, and really kind of exploring all of that. So for those of you who might be intimidated at home by, well, what should I pair with what? I really think you should just dive in and try. Don't get lost in the fancy restaurants who want to spout off all these words to you. You can do this at home. And that's one of my favorite things to do is both create that balance between what you cook at home and enjoying that, but also getting you into those things where you might not have ever heard of this, but now you do because you've gotten to try it. So one of my favorite things is to go and order the most random thing on somebody's menu and ask them, what would you pair with this? And then just experience it. Just have a good time with it. Just let it happen.
Cool.
That's when you ask Jen.
Yes.
All right, Erin, you're talking my language, lady. I love that. Like, play. I always tell people we don't eat what we don't like, so don't drink what you don't like. You know, just there's a wine for everything, and it's the rules of white with fish and red with meat. Those don't have to be adhered to. There's a white and a red for every type of food out there. And if you're in doubt, go rosé always.
Yeah.
But I'm a really big advocate. My Bible for food and wine pairing is down to the chemistry of the wine. And it really comes down to that understanding that structure. Acid neutralizes salt. Acid helps with sweetness. Tannins are married to fat very perfectly. So it's just taking these really essential basic chemical combinations on the palate and making them work in your favor. I love it when people are super confused because I remain employed all the time, but it really is easier. Like you said, just play with it. Have some just real simple understanding of the chemistry of what you drink and what you eat. And your pairings become almost fail-proof.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Anyone that knows me knows my favorite. I love good food. I've eaten at some 5-star restaurants. I have had some great experiences, but my favorite thing in the world is champagne and potato chips. It's that simple.
Beautiful.
And the better the champagne, the dirtier the potato chips.
Yeah, spend your money on the champagne too.
Yes.
So speaking of staying employed, I think we'll round out our final set of questions here. We have a couple from folks on Facebook wanting to know about like sort of advice for up and coming folks who want to become a sommelier in Texas. And I think there's a question here too that's kind of more specific to if you're coming out of other industries, say like the hotel industry or hospitality elsewhere. What advice do you have for getting into the wine industry? Is somm certification a must to start, or is there a good entry path for someone who this is what they really want to do? How do they kind of get into this?
I think what is really key is enthusiasm. You have got to have the enthusiasm, and you've got to be okay with learning forever. You've got to just have that, just even when you feel frustrated, even when you're not sure, just bear down on that enthusiasm and just love what you do. I think that that's really going to get, especially if you are new to this industry or if you're wanting to become a somm, that's what's going to carry you through all of that education. Plus, you also have to be comfortable with learning. And you have to be comfortable with learning forever, because you will always continue to learn and to be evolving, and especially as the industry evolves. And that's what's so fantastically beautiful about being a somm. We look back centuries, years, and we always learn new things. Things constantly are evolving. We discover everything changes. What's true today might not be true in 5 to 10 years, much less 100 years from now. So you've got to have that open-mindedness and just bear into learning. And I think that's important to be prepared for.
Yeah, and this is an industry. This is a venture that you have to be really okay failing at. And one of my mentors about 15 years ago looked at me and said, ancient proverb, what's the difference between the master and the student? The masters failed more times than the students ever tried. And that comes along with this industry, with this, not the industry, but the sommelier certification industry. So be ready to learn, be ready to be humble, be ready to fail. That's where you make your biggest strides. But as far as breaking into the Texas wine industry, again, have passion. It's not always easy work. It's not just drinking. Be ready to evolve with it and have a great attitude. I mean, I know a lot of sommeliers that I would consider some of the best in the world that don't have certifications behind them. And that's their passion and their understanding of the process. So just be ready to be fully invested passionately.
I was going to say a similar thing about knowing somms that aren't certified, that are better than any certified somm even that you meet, that really are just incredibly passionate. So I don't think it's a must at all to be a certified somm, but to be a somm in your own right, to be constantly growing and learning and educating yourself and finding different people to be your mentor or mentors is a great place to sort of start in the wine industry, because you can be in the industry without being in the industry. You can work in a tasting room and not really know what's going on, but you can also be someone that is just enamored and in awe of the entire industry and just loves it. And those are the people that end up being the people that are like Jen and like Carl and like Erin and like David, that are all here today, that everyone is asking questions to and have had a full life in the wine industry, and it's still growing and evolving. And I think that that's just beautiful. And I think that grape growing and winemaking and being in the wine industry is very unique in that way.
And
one of the things I like most about this is, I always look at this, is that Jen commented about passion, enthusiasm, a good personality. Can you tell a good story? Or you're interested in what you're doing? If you come to me and say, I want to be involved in the wine business, and you have all of those attributes, that's fantastic, because I can teach you all you need to know about the wine. I just want you to be there and be ready to go.
But to everyone's point, and especially Erika's, I really feel like it's important for everyone to know that it doesn't necessarily have to be a personal one-on-one relationship with these people. You can listen to podcasts. You can read blogs. I have read numerous blogs that Carl has written, and he doesn't, he would have never known for however long that I've been reading his blog this whole time. You don't necessarily have to have someone physical in your life in order for you to be able to achieve this, or even follow this, or be inspired by this. These mentors can also be people, podcasts, they can be social media friends, they can be anyone within the industry, whether it's Texas or anywhere else. These mentors can still mentor you, even if they don't know you. That's totally okay. You can read as many books as you want to. That person can be a great influence in your life. And I think that's also important to realize or to know for somebody who's trying to continue their education. You don't have to find a buddy. You can find a mentor, you can find a book, you can find a podcast, you can find something that really actually truly appeals to you, brings you joy to listen to or talk to in order to have that influence within your life.
You for sure don't have to start with a person. So if you are someone that's super extroverted like me, going kind of off of Erin's point where you don't need another person, I found that in the things that I do that don't have other physical people, more like podcasts and books and things, I have found people through that have become real life friends and people that I've met at symposiums and things like that, where we've actually just finally met one day and we're like, wait, that was you? Oh my God. So it sort of comes full circle.
Well, and here's a question for everybody on the panel. Who has had one of the worst days of their life during harvest? Nobody. Who's had one of the sweatiest, most miserable days of their life during harvest?
I've come pretty close to having my worst day, but those have mostly ended up in a hospital by the time the day was over. So
right.
Yeah. But yeah.
Here's the advice I have.
Romantic, imaginings out of you real quick. So.
Absolutely. Here's the advice I have for anybody. Dive in. Ask if you can help. Ask if you can volunteer. Do a bottling line. Do a harvest. This is not an industry for the weak. And I will tell you, as the director of operations for an organization, I still scrub toilets. I still pick up dirty bits on our patio. I make sure that things are operating efficiently. I do harvest. I'm outside. You get dirty. There's aspects of this that are not glamorous, and you still gotta love them. My first harvest here in Texas, it was the beginning of the drought in 2009. It was about 1,000 degrees outside. I've never been so close to passing out in my life. I'm a city girl, and my husband had the sense to ask me what kind of shoes I was going to wear, because I didn't even own tennis shoes at the time, and I foolishly said flats, and that was not going to cut it. So he thought I would die, and I found shoes and boots, and I spent 18 hours outside on a 110-degree day in the vineyard, in the winery, pressing until midnight. And I got home and I was in tears, and he put me in the shower, clothes, shoes, and all. And I just sat there and cried and couldn't wait to go back the next day. If you don't have that love, don't do it. Get out of the industry.
No,
it is to those who are in the winter pruning in
when it's raining
in freezing weather with wind, because we all know it blows up in West Texas, and you've got like 10 layers on, and then you take a few off just to put a few back on.
Yep.
No, I mean, all these are great. I mean, like the thing is, all you guys are describing environments where there's an incredible amount of opportunity in this industry. If you're willing to do the hard work, there are mentoring environments that will give you an opportunity to follow your passion wherever it may be. Like the thing I like to sort of point out is my current winemaker started digging holes for not enough money, and now is my winemaker, but yesterday was having to actually paint and prime boards to go up in our tasting room. So it really the not great jobs never really stop in this business, and yet it enables you to be part of a group of people who will be very open to sort of providing you the education and the opportunities if you're willing to put in that hard work. So for everybody who wants to get into this business, look at those job postings, even if it's not the one that you thought you wanted, but do concentrate on finding the environments that have people who are excited to mentor you if you're willing to put in the work. So
everyone.
I mean, I really appreciate all of you guys being on this call with us today. This was fun. You guys are, you guys have good stories too. So I think we have Lindsay back here to kind of sign us out, but I appreciate all of y'all joining us today. So
Yes, thank you all so much. Cheers. This is great. Thank you guys so much. This was fun and informative and encouraging. And I know I really enjoyed this tonight. So thank you all for being here. And thank you everyone who tuned in and joined us tonight. We're just so appreciative for all the support that we've received, especially during COVID. We've just seen a lot of support for the wine industry. And so we're just so grateful for everybody that has joined us for these happy hours, that have continued to support Texas wine. And so thank you. We hope that you will join us again next week, same time, same place. Next week, we have Chris Brundrett with William Chris Vineyards, Andrew Sides with Lost Draw Cellars, Doug Lewis with Lewis Wines, and John Rivenberg with Kerrville Hills Winery. And they are going to be featuring some of their new release wines. And so we do hope that you'll join us. And in the meantime, we just want to encourage everybody to visit the Texas Hill Country Winery's website. We've got great resources there for ways you can continue to support all of our wineries. May that be through curbside, delivery, shipping deals, all sorts of different things that we have going on that you can find more information about there. And I also wanted to make a note that a lot of our tasting rooms will be opening tomorrow for Memorial Day weekend. And so we're all very excited about that. And so I just wanted to make a note that we did do a social post on that today. And so if you are planning to head out to the Hill Country, we just recommend that you call the wineries in advance, check out their social pages and just see what their protocols are, and make sure that you're just fully aware of their hours that's going on so we can keep everybody safe and keep Texas wine in your glass.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Keep it classy, Texas Hill Country.